Hello Galactic family. Greetings, dear ones, I am Krian of the Magnetic Service. Today I want to give you a story. It is a love story and also involves the history of the planet, the now and the future. These are things I want to tell you and things I want to clarify for you. Let's call it the state of the Earth in June 2017. This is a love story because of where it begins and how it begins. If you go back 24 years, the public channels of Krian began in the first book of Krian. The information was basically an introduction to change, which I and many others began to tell them was coming. It was not my esoteric information, but something that the ancestors and the ancients knew. They were watching the stars in the heavens for thousands of years. They realized that stars shifted subtly from decade to decade and began to understand the mechanics of the solar system and the Earth's orbit around the Sun before modern telescopes. They discovered that the Earth surrounded the Sun and that there had to be a little oscillation with the planet itself to make the change in the sky as it did. They even calculated the very slow duration of the oscillation, and over time, prophecies developed around it. However, the prophecies were so similar among these ancients that to this day those who study this are impressed. How could these stories be so similar when the ancients did not know each other? How could information be so similar, even if great distances and centuries separated them? The old calendars with which you are familiar have begun their long count over 5,000 years, and the conversation about the potential of the change of consciousness has begun. The end of the calendar was scheduled to happen in 2012, the centralization of the swing. In 1989, my partner started speaking for me, 2 years after the harmonic convergence. In 1993, my partner received and published the first Krian book. It was a revelation of what was to come. Change can occur, now that many things have happened to eliminate the potential of the World War. I told them why the Krian group was here, what was happening, what could happen next, and some of the prophecies of what to expect. It was a mysterious book, a small book, for my partner was only learning to be in complete coherence with the central source channeling. The channeling is improved intuition and the bridge to the other side of the veil. The book revealed the feeling of complete love and compassion for all mankind. In this first book of Krian, I gave you information about the changes in the magnetism of the planet and more. I also gave a few sentences that contain suggestions of climate change. My partner interpreted it this way. He said there would be times and places where it would rain where never before it had rained, and places where the rain would stop where it always rained. In other words, massive climate change was underway, and that was in 1993. This was the forerunner of what you are experiencing now on the planet. It's not a story of disgrace. This is a love story, dear ones, and the story is of God's love, the love of the central source, the love of all that exists, Gaia herself, for the human being. The title of the book was The End of Time, since it was the end of the old energy. What is happening now refers to you, dear ones. The old souls of the planet are here with purpose and in time. There is no mistake in you sitting in your seats right now. Some of you are just learning about these things and others are very aware of these things. Each of you has your own path, and every human being has a unique decision to believe and not believe. But you are here for a purpose. I am here tonight to tell you a tremendous love story, that in 1993 there was a change and that the Earth itself was preparing for it. The real physics of the planet was positioning the new human, so you could move forward, learn about coherence with the planet, with yourself. All the information was talking about a time when humanity would begin to emerge from the old energy, which you call human nature. This term refers to the way humans behave. This has never changed, but now it will. The prophecies were not about events as much as about the change of consciousness. It does not matter if they were written in the Mayan calendar or in the Hopi prophecy, they were the same. They all talked about different paths that human beings would be forced to take because of change, but a split between darkness and light was the theme. In their own way, they talked about a planet that was in great transition and that if humanity had not been destroyed by the centralization of the oscillation December 21, 2012, the center of the precession of the equinoxes, something incredible would begin, an evolution of humanity in a way you had never seen before. It would begin with a widening of consciousness and wiser, and all this happened. We told you in 1993 that you should have a land that was prepared for it, so the magnetic grid would change, time would change, and even your place in space would change. You have seen them all. However, of these, let's talk about the weather first. The forecast climate change. For many years, I've talked about what's going on with its climate. When I started, my information was very controversial because it did not fit in with what was said by the media. In those same years, you have seen what has been called warming. I told them it was really the beginning of a cooling. I did this to avoid whatever happens to the pessimists. I wanted to establish the record before others came and built another scenario of destruction from climate change, which is very common for humanity. Fear is the friend of the old energy, and change always creates fear. I want to make a statement: the scene of the misery of humanity is so ingrained in you that it has become a habit. Whenever you see something unusual, the first thing you think is in tragedy. Dear ones, you have been trained to think so. In ancient energy, this came from history, from the scriptures, from your parents, from all those who would socially unite, into conspiracy theories that all humanity would come to a horrible end, and they seemed to have fun while they did. The scene of destruction, dear ones, is a habit. Your current films do not help. Some of them are scenarios of disgrace on climate change and on Earth. You have not gotten over it yet. The habit is alive and well. However, this is a love story. I want to tell you about the weather. If you want to follow what is happening scientifically, just look at solar activity. That is the reason, and always has been. Kriyan did not bring this to mankind. You can see the cycles of climate on the planet from the cycles of solar activity recorded in history. They correlate, and this has happened before. What you see today is not addressing destruction. It is not a mistake that another cycle is coming, and we told you that it would arrive 14 years ago. Listen, the cycle arrives. There are humans here or not? Should we say this again? The cycle arrives. There are humans here or not? This is controversial. Let the records of ice cores and tree rings show that the cycle is very consistent. It starts with heating levels and high carbon dioxide content, and eventually enters a cooling space. This cycle has been seen repeatedly over the centuries in various stages of intensity. This time there is at the beginning of a mini ice age. People say, when? If you have paid attention, you do not need a prophet. Instead, look at the cycle of past tables and the behavior of the sun. The moment is there, but I'll tell you anyway. You will begin to see the cold portion in 15 years, 2032. Some of you are still enjoying the heating section. This will slowly begin to move forward. It should come before a cooling, and this scenario is known to those who study the dynamics of the planet. The point so far is that you really have not heard much from this group of experts because they are usually employed by the government or have university grants. So what they may want to tell you is still at odds with the popular story that others wish you to believe. A mini ice age is coming. Korean, is not this the disgrace to the planet? Many have seen the representation of artists from the major land cities under the ice and all of the things that go very well with science fiction films. This is simply a picture of someone's doom scenario, not reality based on the history of the cycle. If you want to know what a mini ice age is like, just review the story quickly and study what happened in 1650. That was a mini ice age. Due to the change in the Gulf Stream, the ocean, the River Thames froze in London. Dear ones, it was the cold, but it did not destroy the planet. This is a mini ice age. That's what you face, and I'll say it again. If you live in a cold climate, observe this advice: it will get colder. Get out of the hammock. In the next 15 years, find a way to produce electricity, independently or in smaller groups. This can be done throughout the region, or separately, in homes. You will need it, dear ones, because the network, as it exists now, all over the world, is not ready for the next cold and the network will fail. This is not disgrace and sadness, this is just a practical information, commonly known. Its infrastructure in electricity is delicate, very delicate. Get ready for a cold spell that can last for a few decades. That is all. Technology is accelerating to allow this. Do not let your policy interfere with your survival. Why is this a love story? Listen, why does Gaia do this? What is the purpose of such things? I'll give them one more time. It's controversial, even unbelievable to many. How many of you here have aquariums in their homes to take care of the fish? Those who listen and read, how many have or have fish aquariums? For those who have, I will tell you something you already know: you can do whatever it takes to water over time to condition it and make it last. You can change the pH level, they can change the temperatures. However, eventually there comes a time when you can change the water. This is what the temperature changes on the planet. This is controversial. The planet cannot simply change the water. Instead, it does a resumption of life in the ocean using the water cycle. Look for evidence of this, and then remember this channeling. This climate cycle is for updating life in the ocean so that everyone on the planet has the necessary food from the ocean. Gaia does this by herself, has done this before, and does it for a reason, so it will not stagnate. Dear ones, in fact, you put compromising things in the air and water, but this did not cause that cycle. We have said for a long time, stop killing the environment. The reason? This will kill them, not Gaia. Gaia is spectacularly resilient and will survive anything you do. However, it is you who cannot survive if they continue to pollute. All this is beginning to change with your consciousness, and you are beginning to see it and change it. But humans are not causing current climate change. This will eventually be known. What is happening has happened before, and it is almost like a restart for the oceans, and this carries many dichotomous events. You will see reports of a dying ocean, but at the same time you will see unusual reports of many fish and other marine life in places that should have declined. You will see the life cycle of the ocean itself begin to change and restart. The main player in this renewal is a place you would not expect: Antarctica. I want you to watch magic in Antarctica. It has always been at the core of restoring microbes and other types of life in its oceans, and is especially active during these mini ice ages. The process will cause the currents under the sea to be filled with new life, delivering it to both hemispheres almost like an underwater conveyor belt. So how does this climate change affect humanity in this love story? How does this work exactly? This means that you, as well as the longest life cycle on Earth, will have enough to eat. The ocean is the giver of life, food for the planet, the life cycle of Gaia herself. The Earth must do this for you, and it's all very much related to solar activity and more. The love story continues, does not it? Look at the moment. The ocean renews itself soon after the change. What is change? It is a renewal, an absolute renewal of civilization as you know it. You went beyond the marker, where destruction and ending were expected. You have gone through a war, and you know that. Sociologists are scratching their heads. So are the scientists. This is a very unusual time for humanity. Here at your seminar, there is a team of people who are teaching you the truth about what is happening, and they are scientists. The miracles that are before you and what they are describing, dear ones, is the love story. The earth is being prepared for you to have enough food. Change is your decision, against all odds of your prophecies, to remain on this planet and not to be destroyed. You are moving into a higher consciousness, and the ideas that are beginning to come to you will eventually be accepted and not rejected. It will be the first time in your civilization that these ideas will begin to be accepted. In relation to the higher consciousness, eventually there will come a time when you will not kill yourself. I've said that before, dear. Listen to me, the end of the war on Earth is not the ultimate goal. That's the beginning, because when there is no war, inventions will be given to them and physics will be given to them, the new physics in which you will not make use of weapons. That's where it really begins. There will be new paradigms of food, warmth and better health for all. Slowly, a greater sense of integrity and compassion will create the end of the suffering for the planet and the beginning of the policy that makes sense, the governments that get along and a general union of civilization. You also will not have an overpopulation, as the pessimists have said. There is a reason for the population explosion, and it is not mathematics. It is ignorance. How do I know what's coming? I've seen it, I've seen it. You do not, then, take advantage of this information, go out and look at your eyes and say, well, maybe not, maybe not. It's a fantasy that cannot happen. Socially, it starts now. Did you notice? Nothing will remain the same. When these changes begin, the reaction will often be fear. When you realize that the economy is starting to change and to transform and a new paradigm begins, there will be fear. The new paradigms are here to actually save old, systematically broken systems. But when it does, many will not like it. Humans want everything to be the same, and when the change begins, there will be those who will stand and say, see, it's the destruction of the planet, here it comes, we said it. They are already doing it. You've been on change for 5 years. Mother, how long does it take to raise a child? I'm listening to the 40-year audience, but it's not always right laughs. Let's call it 20 years. During that time, your love story with the child is always there, no matter what. When they are 3 or 5 or 11 or 17 years old, the love story continues. It does not matter if they are kicking and screaming, swearing or frustrated at life. The love story continues even when they are going through issues of self-esteem or depression. You are there and you do your best because the love of a father is unsurpassed. You are creating a new energy and paradigm on the planet, and you are 5 years old the time since the change began. You're starting to shake up and ask questions. Is this really happening? Is it really a change, or is it the end of the world, as we were told years ago? This is human nature when entering into fear, no matter what. Come back in time with me, thousands of years ago. Come back and pretend for a moment that you are in a small group called the Israelites. You are ready to do something profound, to leave Egypt. You have suffered years and years of horror as slaves. Your people do not live long, and you know why. Generation after generation, you were enslaved, but all of a sudden, this has changed. You saw it with your own eyes, Israelites. You have seen that miracles happen, one after another, which changed the mind of the Pharaoh. You have all seen the Passover. You could see it with your own eyes. This was not something esoteric. It was real life. It was time to escape, and you gathered your things and advanced like a small group through the desert, always looking for difficulties. You crossed the Red Sea and Pharaoh did not follow you. This is the miracle of miracles. You got it. You are free. You saw it with your own eyes, and recorded it in your brain. You experienced it, and it was real. Then you entered the desert toward the promised land, your new land. But apparently never came. You began to cross the desert in circles, and the cry was, "Here it is. The promised land is coming." However, it did not come fast enough, did it? In 5 years, you have lost some of your elder sages who were the core of the exit. Those who remained tried as best they could to give them more patience guidance, but this was not heard. Young people began to oppose leadership. The deep civilization that had personally seen the miracles of God began to doubt and to create other gods. It was simply not happening fast enough, and the group was frustrated. Slow growth is necessary in the path of wisdom. Do not be so impatient that you lose track of what happened. I was on a stage in Israel a short time ago and told the current Israelis something they did not want to hear. I told them that they were still walking in circles and that the promised land is the New Jerusalem. They were walking in circles with their parents' ancient paradigm: hatred, fear, war, and the expectation of them on the other side. I told them that they would continue to walk in circles until they abandoned the old ways. Other old enemies only 70 years ago left the old consciousness, but never did, even after more than 1,000 years. It was time, and they would pave the way for peace on earth. I will give you a deep truth now, dear ones. God's love will not end this planet when you're only 5. Everything that happened was with your own choice. The precession of the equinoxes has a structure of time as it moves through the band in the sky, the Milky Way. It took 18 years to get to the center change from December 21, 2012, and it will take 18 years to leave. This adds 36 combined years, a conclusion of 9. You are only 5 years old in a window of change of 18 years. We have told you that this is the time when you can make a difference. Listen to what was presented on this day and do not be afraid of what others tell you to fear. A mini ice age will come to cleanse the ocean and feed this planet, but there are those who say that Earth is doomed and that you will die. I think that's how God loves them. Can you imagine going through all this? Going through change, starting to have all this new information available, beginning to have all the science that comes, fighting successfully against the Dark Army, and then God and Gaia eliminate them? How do they feel so far? Dear ones, this is a fantasy of doom, which is the residue of a very old energy. I want you to celebrate the love of God and the cycles that are here. They are new to you, so you have to see what they mean. You will have to rewrite the scene of disgrace and sadness with which you have grown and continue to hear. You guys had a movie the other night, a different kind of science fiction movie talking about the movie Arrival, which was shown to the participants. It is one of the first of its kind in years and years, with aliens who visit Earth, and are very similar to you in your consciousness. They need your help. In history, they did not come to destroy them. They did not bring great weapons. They did not come to steal your gold or your oceans. What a concept! There is life in the universe, dear ones, that is far more advanced than you. This is because they have been far, far more than you. They are much more evolved. I'm not saying they have bigger brains. I'm talking about having compassion, wisdom, and intelligence far beyond yours. They solved their own peace problems, millennia before you. They look for you, but they have a policy of non-interference, because you have free will. They always cared about you. They come and they go and never advertise. You have seen many of them for centuries, but they keep their distance, because you are not yet ready. You are about to experience more change. We told you this morning that the darkness smiles when you are afraid. It is up to you how much joy continues. We have said that you cannot kill the darkness, and that the only way to diminish it is to create more light. The more light there is, the less darkness you will have on the planet. You are now at the very tip of the great social discovery. Did you hear what was presented on this stage today? Science is beginning to understand compassion, coherence, and the meaning and purpose of the heart. They are discovering that this coherence creates healing, great changes in thinking, and is responsible for bringing compassion to those who did not think it would be possible. Dear ones, this is the beginning of the great benevolent change, not the beginning of disgrace. I want you to remember that. When you leave this place and listen to others, there will always be those who will tell you that the end is near. When my partner was a child, the first thing he learned in his church was, "The end is near." He continued to hear this theme from others for years, "The end is near. It's always close, it seems." This is what his society had been expecting in many ways for decades. So the reality box you grew up with almost requires you to be afraid. We ask you to disassemble the box. Maybe it's time to create a new belief paradigm that says all other boxes are shattered. Old souls, you are the forerunners of everything that is coming. Change is the reason you are sitting in this room, or listening to this channeling. Old souls, take it seriously. If someone tells you it's the end of the world, I want you to smile and tell them why it is not. Tell them that God loves them too much for this. This is an old message developed by men and not by God. What is happening now is the greatest love story of all, how much God loves you. You got through the change and started climbing a hill of change. Spooky? Can be. Difficult? It will be. Who is better to do this than who has lived hundreds of lives and has the wisdom of the Akasha to attract? Who better to lead the planet through all this? The answer is you. This is the greatest love story of all. It is between you and the Spirit. Can you feel this? Can you feel the coherence between you and me today as I give you the truth? It's good news, new and promising. You will see. Things are not always as they seem. Leave this place differently from what they came. Understand that you are not alone in any of this. This is the message of Kriyan. So be it. And so it is. Kriyan.